Okay. I'm Kate Mabry, representing the Clemson Veterans History Project. I'm interviewing Ed
Is that supposed to be recording?
Yes, sir. It's recording.
Oh.
I'm interviewing Edward Harris on Monday, March 28th at his home. Ed Harris is my landlord. This interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. So let's begin with where and when were you born?
I was born in March of 1942 in Spartanburg County.
Okay. Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
Well, my father, I did not meet him until I was 5 or 6 years old, because when I was born, he was already in the war, World War II. My dad owned barbershops and beauty shops in Spartanburg County. My mother worked in the engineering department of Duke Power Company.
Okay. Did you have any siblings?
No.
No. Okay. And what were you doing before you entered the service?
Going to college.
Where did you go to college?
Went to Wofford.
Okay.
Among other places.
What did you major in at Wofford?
Business.
Business. Okay, so in which branch of the military did you serve?
Army.
The Army. Did you enlist or were you drafted?
No, I enlisted. I was in the ROTC at Wofford and had received a commission upon graduation.
Okay. And did you choose to be in the Army?
Sure.
Okay. So what happened when you departed for training camp and during your early days of training?
Well, the first thing I did when I went into the 82nd Airborne Paratroopers. Went to jump school down in Fort Benning, Georgia. Then came back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and stayed there for about, probably a month. Went to artillery school in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and then was transferred to Vietnam.
Okay. Do you recall your instructors? And if so, what were they like?
Ooh. Instructors were pretty good. I do not recall their names.
Okay. Did you receive any specialized training?
Yes, it's in artillery school, and in jump school.
Okay. And then how do you adapt to military life, including the physical regimen, barracks, food, and social life?
It wasn't a problem. I played a few sports in high school, so it was a fairly easy transition.
Okay. In which year did you go to Vietnam?
67, 68.
Okay. And do you have any particular memories of that experience?
Arriving and leaving.
Arriving and leaving. Okay. So were you on the front lines?
Yes.
What combat action did you witness?
I witnessed several actions. I was up in what they call I Corps near the DMZ.
Okay.
And I was there for Tet at Hue.
Okay. Can you explain what I Corps is?
Vietnam was divided into several different battle zones. And I Corps, you had I Corps, 2 Corps, and 3 Corps, and so forth.
Okay.
So I Corps is just the upper northern part of Vietnam.
Okay. So how did you feel? Did you witness any casualties and destruction? And if so, how did that make you feel?
Didn't like it. Lost a lot of friends.
What kind of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving, and with whom?
Well, ironically, I grew up, everything was segregated. In the Army, it was not segregated. And that was my first taste of being pretty closely associated with the black people.
Were there fights or anything? How
No.
did that work out?
No. That was fine. We all had a common enemy there.
Mm-hmm. How about when you returned? Did you maintain some of those friendships?
I did. Some of them have passed away now. I went back to Fort Bragg in 1988. We had somewhat of what you might call a reunion, and I was somewhat disappointed there. These guys had not fared well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them had not taken advantage of their VA benefits. On occasion today, I get calls from some of the guys that I served with, helping them get to their proper VA associate to where they get some VA benefits.
Okay. Did you stay in touch with family and friends back home?
Sure. Yeah, we corresponded with letters back and forth.
How often would you receive mail?
Did I receive mail? Probably every week.
Okay.
Depending on where we were, because we would go out on patrol 15 to 18 days at a time.
So what did you do for recreation when you're off duty?
Over there?
Mm-hmm.
Usually we'd go back to the South China Sea and take it easy. Play cards.
Were there fun places to go there?
Not in Vietnam.
Not in Vietnam. Okay, so where were you when the war ended?
I was up near a town called Phu Bai. Well, when the war ended, I was here.
Okay.
I came back home. The war actually, I guess you could say it ended in 1971.
So were you sent home?
Well, you were required to serve 12 months duty in combat zones, and so after my 12 months was up, they let me come back home.
Okay. How were you received by your family and community?
Well, nobody talked about it much because it's such an unpopular war. Very unpopular when I got back.
Okay. How'd your parents feel about you being abroad?
They weren't nuts about it because I was an only child.
Okay. So how'd you readjust to civilian life?
There really wasn't a period, and this is one of the problems I see with veterans today. There wasn't really a period of adjustment. You came out of a combat situation that you've been involved in for a year, and you were thrown directly right back into society. And a lot of times it didn't work out. Most people that came back were pretty short-tempered, and just a different world here.
So have you remained in contact with any fellow veterans?
No, most of them are scattered far and wide. I don't keep up with them.
So are you a member of any veterans organizations?
Yeah, Veterans of Foreign Wars.
Okay. And do y'all have regular meetings?
They do. I don't really attend a lot of them. I just do it for the benefit of the organization.
Okay. And what are those benefits?
Well, just to keep the thing going and keep the vets' attention focused as far as the government's concerned.
Okay. And what's the purpose of that?
The Veterans of Foreign Wars, they in some cases, they look after the veterans. If you have an issue, you can call veterans, and they will assign an advocate to your case and try to assist you.
Okay. Do you recall any major battles that you fought in?
Several.
Do you remember the names of them?
Well, the big one was the Tet Offensive.
Okay. Can you tell me anything about that?
What do you want to know about it? It was ugly.
It was ugly? Okay. Let's see. So what have you done since separating from the military?
Well, I came back and went to graduate school here at Clemson.
Okay. What did you major in?
What I majored in there, and let's see, industrial engineering.
Okay. And then what did you do?
I retired. I went to work for a couple of injection molding companies. I became the national sales manager for a European injection firm and retired there.
Okay. So
and now I'm in the rental real estate business.
Okay. So how did your wartime experiences affect your life?
Well, it took me when I went away to war. I had a daughter that was crawling around. When I came back, she was walking and talking.
Okay.
So it took some adjustment. You lose a couple of years out of your life as far as your progression in your career is concerned. So you kind of came back at what I would call a little bit of a disadvantage as far as your contemporaries who had graduated from college and didn't do any service duty.
Were you surprised to see your daughter all grown up when you came back? Or
Yeah,
had you kind of expected it?
A little bit.
And how'd your wife, I mean, I'm sure she didn't like you being away, but how did she take that?
Well, she's rather stoic, very independent, so she did quite well during that time.
Okay. What are some life lessons that you've learned from military experience?
Life lessons? Shoot first and ask questions later.
Okay.
No, I think there's a lot of things that we as a country should learn. I'm concerned about the direction we're headed in today. If you take a look just from the human cost, the deaths and everything, look at the number of people we have coming back here that have what they call post-traumatic syndrome. I'm amazed at how many vets are committing suicide. That bothers me. Although I haven't had those specific problems dealing with VA, I'm concerned about some of the stories I'm hearing about what some of the veteran centers are doing in regard to medical care for our veterans.
Yeah, that's scary. How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
Well, I'm of the opinion that we're far too eager to teach all our young people about death and dying as we are opposed about life and living. I'm somewhat tired of us being the police of the world. Don't mind helping somebody out, but I want them to carry their weight too. I'm tired of working or helping countries that fight to the last American.
So this is kind of bouncing off of that. What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view or see this interview?
We need to have leaders that can look down the road, a long way down the road, and try to refrain from involving our young people in the war. It's always the young people that go to war, never the older people. As far as my experience, I never saw anybody above the rank of captain in a combat zone.
Okay, that's interesting.
So it's the younger guys that do the fighting and the dying.
If you were young today, would you go back?
Go back to Vietnam? Yeah, probably out of sense of duty to the country.
Even after all of your experiences?
Mm-hmm.
What about, would you go to the Middle East?
That's a whole different ball game. I'm not even sure we need to be there. If we are going to be there, we need to be there as a coalition, not strictly on our own. I don't like the fact that we're always at the head of the thing. Of course, there's some disadvantage too to having leaders other than American leaders guiding our troops in combat. If we're going to be there, we need to be there in force and take care of business, not mess around like we're doing now.
So being a veteran, how did you feel about 9/11?
9/11, I was angry about it. I think it could have been stopped if we'd been more vigilant. I'm a firm believer in Donald Trump stopping all of them from coming over here till we find out what's going on with them. He's saying the right things, but he's just the wrong guy to say them.
I agree. So is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed regarding your experience in Vietnam?
No, I think you've covered it pretty well. Most people don't like to talk about those experiences,
Mm-hmm.
you know. There's some things that happen over there that you aren't very proud of, but you get over it.
That's good. All right. Well, I think.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a number of articles for the newspaper at home, for the hometown newspapers there, and several times my inclination was to write the fact that we were losing the war, which I realized after I'd been in country for about 3 months, and so they quit printing them. They wanted to hear happy events, I guess you could say, but this pretty graphically explains what I lived from day to day over there. There's a picture there that the fellow in front of me got shot by a sniper while we were crossing a body of water. I don't remember exactly where it was, but that article right there pretty much explains how I felt from day to day. I knew pretty quickly after we got there that we didn't really belong there. And obviously the whole political reasons that we were there have proven to be quite false.
So did you write this overseas? Did you write this overseas, or once you returned?
No, I wrote that while I was there.
What did you write it on?
What did I write it on?
Mm-hmm.
I had some stationery.
And so did you just send it to the Spartanburg Herald, and they published it?
Yeah.
Did they pay you for it?
No.
No? How many other articles did you write?
Probably 3 or 4.
Okay. Who was Charlie?
Charlie? That's the nickname we gave the Viet Cong.
Okay. Was there a
Have you
reason
ever seen
for
the
that?
movie Forrest Gump?
Yes.
Remember him talking about hunting Charlie? There's some guy named Charlie.
I don't know if I do.
Oh, you need to go back and watch it.
Do you know why they called it Charlie? Is there a reason?
No, I don't. It was just a name.
Just a name?
They had several nicknames.
What were some of those?
Well, one of them, to go back to the world means to go back to your home.
Okay.
I was surprised how many guys we had in the Army that weren't American citizens. One of my best friends, Renee Bauman, was killed. And he was in the Army to get his citizenship.
Okay, so you could join the Army to get your citizenship?
Back then, that was part of it, not a requirement, but he did it to, he wanted to be an American citizen. I think he was from Switzerland.
Okay.
But ironically, on my way home, I left Tonsanuk Air Base, and I saw a guy getting off the plane landed that we were getting on, and I saw this fellow get off the plane, and I recognized him, and he was a schoolmate of mine from Wofford College. His name was John Reeves, and actually he was a roommate of my best friend Milton Ponder, who lives up here at Dacresville. And chit-chatted with John for a few minutes, and 6 weeks later, Ann and I was at his funeral up in Gaffney.
Oh.
He was a great guy, and to me, such a waste, really a waste.
What percentage of your friends would you say enlisted?
None.
None? You were the only one who did?
Well, I didn't enlist. I was in ROTC.
Okay.
Difference. Enlist means you just walk off the street and go in and join.
Okay.
And that was back when they had the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So the only people enlisting, and this might not be the right way to say that, a lot of people enlisted where they could join the units that they wanted to join, and it perhaps precluded them from going to Vietnam.
Okay. Did you know anyone who was drafted?
Who was drafted? Actually, I don't. I know that if you didn't perform well in college, if you flunked out of school, you could be drafted.
Well, that's scary, but that motivated people to do well. So did you fly airplanes at all?
I used to.
You used to? What types?
Well, I owned a, didn't own. My partner and I had an airplane. It was a small single wing, fixed engine. And I got too old to fly.
You got too old to fly?
Yeah.
So you flew once you got back?
Well, also flew some small helicopters in Vietnam.
Okay. So where'd you learn how to fly?
Well, we had, when you were in a helicopter, you had a pilot. And being an artillery officer, we would go up and spot for artillery fire. And we started losing some guys in the helicopters because they didn't know something happened to the pilot. So they would send us and give us some quick lessons on how to land an OH-23 helicopter.
Okay. How big is an OH-23?
2-man.
2-man?
Mm-hmm. That is a Huey that you're looking at in that picture there.
Okay. And so is this bigger or smaller than the OH?
Oh, larger. That thing could carry up to 8 combat troops.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
and actually, they're coming in there to pick up a guy that got shot, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
When were you there?
Hmm?
Were you there for this
there.
one?
Mm-hmm.
And then what's this picture of with the tent?
Let's see what you got there. Oh, that was the place that I slept one night.
Okay. It was somewhere in the jungle?
Here's the picture crossing that river.
Okay.
And you can see the guy that just got shot, and this is where we're airlifting a guy out that was injured.
So where would y'all normally sleep?
On the ground.
On the ground?
Yeah.
Did you have tents or anything?
Well, you didn't carry that kind of stuff with you.
Mm-hmm.
You just had plenty of bug juice. Make sure you take your malaria pills every day. And pretty much in the open. The only time it was really bad during the monsoon season when it rained for about 3 or 4 months out of the year.
Okay. What was bug juice?
Bug juice? It was like mosquito repellent.
Okay. And then would you just get your food dropped to wherever y'all were?
Yeah, they'd bring in food on choppers.
What type of food was it?
Actually, it wasn't bad at all. You could have hot meals, or you could have what they call alert rations. These are dehydrated foods.
Mm-hmm.
And you could fix those pretty quick. And then we would go back, when we were out on patrol, we'd go back, typically go back to the South China Sea. Vietnam's a narrow country, so you can get out there pretty quick. And we would go into a village, and we would hire the women. And being on the South China Sea, the seafood was unreal. It was great.
Okay.
We'd hire the women. They'd cook. I mean, you had, 200-something guys in an infantry line company.
Mm-hmm.
And they would cook for all of us. We'd pay them.
Did they have a stance on the war? Like, how did they feel towards foreigners?
It was terrible. They were caught between the fire and the frying pan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they wanted to stay away from everybody as much as they could.
Okay.
You know, Viet Cong, they'd come in there and work on them at night. We'd work on them in the daytime.
Okay. Did you lose any weight while you were there?
I weighed 158 pounds when I got back. 220 now.
Okay. Oh. Well, did you get sick at all? Did you stay healthy pretty much?
I stayed fairly healthy. Came down with a light case of malaria. They sent me back. I think they checked me a few times to make sure my liver was okay. The biggest thing was we all got sprayed with Agent Orange,
Okay.
and the people who were up in the combat areas where Agent Orange was used, the incidence of type 2 diabetes is out the roof as far as that population of people concerned. And that's probably where most of our service-related disabilities are now. I'm type 2 diabetic, and it's certainly got to be from Agent Orange because nobody in my family until way late in years even had a problem with diabetes.
Wow, I didn't know that there was a correlation between that.
Yeah, the population is just, it skyrockets for the people who are up in those areas where they had Agent Orange.
Mm-hmm. And how'd they spray with that?
Airplanes.
With airplanes?
Mm-hmm. Agent Orange is a defoliant. They would spray it over areas of heavy jungle growth so you could kind of see what was going on.
Okay.
But I felt like it was more of a deterrent. I mean, you get to where you can, if somebody cuts a tree within 15 or 20 minutes, if you're attuned to it, you can see the color change.
Oh, wow.
So if they were hiding something and you could spot it, you could see pretty much kind of where they were. Most of the fighting in Vietnam, it wasn't like miles apart. It was up close and personal.
It's like guerrilla warfare?
Well, it's, most of the combat that took place there was, I'm talking 100 yards or less.
Wow.
So it could get pretty ugly pretty quick.
Well, when you had malaria, were you in an American hospital?
No.
How were you treated?
They gave me some pills. It was a light case. The guys that had it heavy, they sent them down to some of the field hospitals.
Okay. And how would y'all travel?
Walking.
On foot?
Yeah.
Everywhere?
Just about.
Okay.
Unless they were moving as a unit somewhere.
And then you would be on a truck?
They'd put you on a big deuce-and-a-half truck.
Okay.
Or either by helicopter. If you're going in a combat zone, probably be on some kind of helicopter.
And would you parachute out of?
No. You didn't make parachute jumps in Vietnam. What they would do, they put you on the back of what's called a Chinook helicopter, and they could carry 15 to 20 fully loaded combat guys, and they'd set it down and you get out that way.
Okay.
Most of the travel in combat zones there was in helicopters.
Okay. And how did you get to and from Vietnam, from America?
Flying.
Flying?
I went through Alaska, Japan, and in that way.
Was it commercial or was it with?
Actually, I went over there on a military aircraft, but came home commercial.
Okay. That's nice, I guess. All right. Well, let's see if there's anything else in this. Do you remember what river this was that you were crossing?
I can tell you that it was outside of a town called Huey. It was up. It was let's see, that would have been west of Huey, up near the DMZ.
Okay. Did you encounter any animals or anything in the jungle that?
On occasion, you did. Of course, with all the battles going on over there, most of the wildlife had fled the area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you don't have anything else.
No, that's it.
All right. Thank you so much.